What's going on, everyone? We're back with yet another episode of Tiermania. This time, we are going to be talking about every generation of Pokemon as a whole. So not specifically their regions, but their generations. This is something that Storm and I have talked about a lot. Pokemon is such a huge part of both of our lives, and it's something that we're so deeply invested into that we thought this would be a really good topic for another video. What do you think, Storm?
Yeah, it's something to preface before we go in. It's something that we both have like a lot of knowledge on. I personally do a ton of different challenge runs of Pokemon games on Twitch. Jason does a lot of different challenges on Twitch as well involving Pokemon. So we both have been playing for years and years and years and played all the games and multiple times and all that stuff. So we know what we're talking about when it comes to this stuff.
I would definitely say that we are fairly knowledgeable. I've personally been playing since Fire Red. I actually got my Game Boy Advance SP and my Fire Red cartridge the day of their release, as my birthday was the day before. I think it was September 9th, 2005 is when they came out, and my birthday is September 8th. So I've been playing literally since then. And I've gone back. I own every single main series Pokemon game in cartridge form, including the original 7 Gen 1 and 2 Japanese cartridges. I'm pretty hardcore when it comes to this stuff.
So yeah, with all that in mind, the way we're doing the generations is like Jason said, all of the games put together. So for example, for Generation 4, it's not just Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, but it's also Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So
exactly.
That weighs heavily on how we judge where they go in the tier list, is all of the games in the generation.
Yeah, so we could do a separate maybe games individually or regions specifically tier list down the line, but this is the generations as a whole as opposed to specific parts of them. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with Gen 1. Storm, if I'm not mistaken, you have not played Gen 1.
Yeah, here's the thing. Even though we just said we play this game all the time, I have not played the original Gen 1. I personally started with Gen 4, played all the games, and then went back and played Gen 3. But with Gen 1 and Gen 2, I am such a weird gamer in the sense of, like, if a game is graphically really bad or really, not bad, but just dated, it's hard for me to enjoy it. And with Gen 1 specifically, for me, since it's talked about so much as like the best thing to ever exist, one of the greatest video games of all time, looking back at it, it does not have that same look without the nostalgia goggles, which we'll get into, but I haven't played Gen 1 or Gen 2 specifically.
Yeah, the originals. I've played through them multiple times. Crystal, personally, is my favorite Pokemon game out of all of them. We'll get into the reasons as to why down the line. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about these. Storm, although he has not played them, has talked to people, has seen enough gameplay, and has enough knowledge to give, I would say, to allow for opinions, I would say. As much as you shouldn't be gatekeeping opinions. I think he's still able to talk about them enough, so we're going to kind of talk about them. I personally... like I said, I started with Fire Red, so technically I started with Gen 1, but I didn't start with, like, Gen 1, you know? So Kanto has a special place in my heart. I have a lot of memories with Kanto. I have a lot of memories with these Kanto Pokemon, Gen 1 Pokemon, So they have that aspect of kind of nostalgia for me. But taking the nostalgia goggles off, they're fully off for this video. I will say that Gen 1 is a very unique experience. With a lot of its old coding and a lot of it's very widely considered to be spaghetti code, which basically means that it's just so many things just slapped together that work, but they shouldn't sometimes, kind of thing. And that can very much show. You can break Gen 1 very easily. I think you can do like a glitch and beat Yellow with a game time of 001. It's like really weird. You can do a lot of really bizarre stuff with these games. A lot of people know about how to get Mew via the trainer save battling glitch, which is a really weird glitch. I don't really want to go too much into details, but you can basically guarantee an encounter of any Pokemon you want using their index numbers, and Mew is one of the most common ones used for this method. Gen 1 had issues when it came to typings. Psychic was widely considered and very much is almost a fact that Psychic typing was busted and completely the best type in the entire game because a lot of different reasons. The bug typing, which was one of its weaknesses, was horrendous. It had no the strongest move I think was Twin Needle or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the moves for bug types were so lackluster and didn't really have enough oomph to really help beat Psychic types. A lot of the bug Pokemon were really weak or didn't learn bug type moves. Pinsir and Scyther, for example. Psychic type also resisted, or actually was immune to ghost types, which was its only other quote-unquote weakness. But because of an issue in the coding, you could not damage a Psychic type Pokemon with a ghost type move. They just were completely unaffected as if it was a normal type against a ghost type. So there's a lot of really weird issues. However, I will say that Gen 1 did so much to begin the series. It is the start of the franchise, and that's something that Storm always hits on whenever we talk about this stuff. He can talk about this more in a second. Whenever we talk about this stuff, he's always saying that Gen 1 is the beginning, and you can't really knock it that hard.
Exactly. Like, there has to be some sort of foundation that's set up, and Gen 1 does that great. Like, we have this is the start of, obviously, everything Pokemon, all of the designs. And even though we'll get into the designs more later, but, like, they are iconic at this point. Like, even if you couldn't care less about video games, everybody knows what Pikachu is, everybody knows what Charizard is, all that stuff. So they have that. And then just like the formula of Pokemon as a whole, only being able to hold 6, you have the battles, it's turn-based, you have your typings, you have your gyms, you have your Elite Four champion, you have a rival, all of that stuff. And then even all of that, even with the technical stuff that doesn't hold up, the music is still nothing less than iconic. Like, all of the, well, not every single track, but most of the tracks are extremely recognizable to so many people, and such a staple in pop culture as a whole. It's impossible to ignore, even if you don't personally like Gen 1 or are burnt out of Gen 1 because of how much Kanto has been constantly reinforced as the series goes on. But it makes sense as to why.
Exactly. It's not unjustified that Kanto has gotten a lot of what people call pandering. I don't personally agree that it's pandering. But although Kanto has been shown off in a lot of future games, which we'll get to eventually, it's definitely the starting off point. It's where the series, we wouldn't have Pokemon without Gen 1, right? If Gen 1 didn't take off, and if Gen 1 wasn't as good and memorable as it is, we wouldn't have any other games to talk about, and we wouldn't be talking about this with you right now, right? It kind of is the basis of everything. The designs, actually, we'll step back a little bit here. The nostalgia factor about Gen 1 is one of the biggest things that a lot of people see. What people call Gen 1ers, which is the people who are like, Gen 1 is the best, there's no other Pokemon generation other than Gen 1, which is a bit of an extremist look at it. They really fully believe that Gen 1 is the best, and it's truly only because of nostalgia. They can't look past their experiences as kids, and that can be really, like, detrimental. But also at the same time, it's such a wholesome experience to go back and visit all these places again as that you did as a kid in your older years, that it can be such a wonderful experience, you know? Instead of putting it in a negative light, nostalgia when you go back to Gen 1 can be very freeing almost, and you feel like you're a kid again, exploring everything and going through everything. You might be able to use Pokemon you didn't use as a kid, or maybe you're using Charizard again for the 15th time, but that's because of how much you really just feel the nostalgia when you use Charizard. So it can be a lot of both back and forth. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Storm.
Yeah, I think what you touched on about exploration is also a huge tick in Gen 1's, like, positive box, if that makes any sense. Like, the fact that it establishes this, you can use any Pokemon in any order. You can use 6 Rattata if you want to. You can only use Charizard if you want to. It doesn't matter. You can do it how you play Pokemon, how you want to play it. And not just in what Pokemon you use, but also being able to explore the region. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss in these new games, which obviously we'll get to. But the fact that you can just explore to your heart's content is a huge thing. Yeah. That is also part of the big nostalgia factor. That's both a positive and both a negative, because, you know, as we've touched on, the games are fundamentally broken. Like, just, psychic types are insane. If Rap is like one of the best moves in the game, that's not good. Like,
No,
that's a little rough.
A lot of people, I'm not sure how many people know about this, but Leech Seed and Toxic, when used together, Toxic, as you know, is a move that will do more damage over time. If Leech Seed and Toxic are used together, Leech Seed also gets that damage over time buff, which is a little busted.
Yeah, so it's a little yikes in the department.
Yeah,
but
from the exploration standpoint, a lot of people may not see it, but you can skip Lieutenant Surge and Erica, and like you can do like Koga out of order. Like you can completely skip Lieutenant Surge. You don't necessarily have to go back for him. It's kind of crazy. I think Lieutenant Surge gives fly, so unless you want to just walk around the region, you don't need to fight Lieutenant Surge, which is kind of crazy. But with all that being said, we have not ranked it anywhere yet, and I think we might be a little controversial in where we're putting it. As much as the game feels wonderful and has a lot of great positives, the negatives that are in the game really heavily outweigh it. So I think we both agree that it's going to go to C.
Yeah, and especially I think one of the biggest reasons why it's in C is the designs, which we talked about a little bit, but like some of them are extremely good and like, some of them are really not great. You know, like Muck is literally just sludge. Like Voltorb is just a circle. Like, you know, so it's like
Voltorb's a circle.
they have these like super iconic images, but they also have these extremely lackluster designs.
Yeah.
But because of nostalgia, people excuse it, and it makes sense as to why it gets excused. But I think because of a lot of the lackluster features and just game design flaws that it has in comparison to all of the new games, we can't really put it that high.
Exactly. Yeah. It's got it is the starting off point, but it does have a little too much negative from like a standpoint of things being broken. And yeah, on the design standpoint a little further, you know, stuff like Dugtrio and Magneton are just tripled of their previous forms, and maybe a little bit of a different design. Like Dugtrio now has angry eyebrows instead of normal ones. As much as I love Doduo and Dodrio, Dodrio is just an extra head. You know, so it's just it's some of the like smaller things. Like they're very iconic, but they're also, if these Pokemon were introduced in like Gen 5 or 6, for example, people would not be very happy with them.
Exactly.
So, with all that being said, we move on to Generation 2, or the Johto region, being Gold, Silver, and Crystal, and I'm pretty sure that was it. I don't think there were any others in Gen 2.
Yeah.
Again, Storm has not played, so I'll be doing a little bit more of the talking here, but Storm has played Heart Gold and Soul Silver, so they're basically the same. So you can kind of touch on it from certain aspects there. For many of you guys that may or may not know, Gen 2 was supposed to be the end of the series. Gen 2 was the sequel to Gen 1 and was supposed to cut the series off, no more Pokemon after Gen 2, but they saw how well the games did and how well they were received that they decided to keep making more, you know? That's why we got Gen 3, and then Gen 4, and then 5, and then continuous, you know? Gen 2, without the success of Gen 2, we wouldn't have Pokemon even further. Gen 2 is a technological marvel for its time. Satoru Iwata, may he rest in peace, he single-handedly was able, with his programming knowledge, to fit Kanto into Gen 2. He figured out how to compress enough bytes to save space to get Kanto, the entire region of Kanto, into Gen 2, which is insane. We have not had another region in a Pokemon game, I don't think, since then. I'm not mistaken there, right? We've not had another region as a whole, have we?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So without Satoru Iwata, again, may he rest in peace, without his knowledge, Gen 2 would not be anywhere near what Gen 2 is nowadays. I really, like, if we didn't have Kanto in Gen 2, I do not think Gen 2 would be nearly held as high, and probably would not have done as well.
Yeah. And that's just incredible that they were able to do that at that point in technology. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But also, Gen 2 just improved on so many things. Like, I'm pretty sure Gen 2 added the Dark type, right?
Sorry, I was drinking some water. Gen 2 added Dark and Steel type, yeah. They rebalanced a whole lot of the types. They fixed the issues with the Psychic typing not working. They added Dark to completely counter Psychic typing. So,
Yeah, it's literally just better Gen 1 with also having Gen 1 in it. Like, that's crazy. That's actually insane. So because of that, I feel like we have to give it a lot of props. Not to say that this game doesn't have its flaws. I mean, as someone who does a lot of Nuzlocke, which if you don't know what a Nuzlocke is, it's just a challenge run of Pokemon games to make it harder. You limit yourself in a bunch of different ways. But as someone who does these kinds of runs a lot, the Generation 2 Johto is very hard to go back and play because it does not flow very well.
No.
Like, the level curving is rough. There are very few areas to level up your Pokemon, and it doesn't really connect very well. But the sheer amount of content that is in this game can't be understated.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'd say that Gen 2 either 1.5 times or doubled the playtime of Gen 1. Like 100% completing the story of like story and post game of Gen 1 and 2 are drastically different times. One of the coolest things about Gen 2 is the fact that you've got that red battle at the end up in Mount Silver. You fight level 81 Pokemon. I think Pikachu's like level 81 or something like that. And it's crazy to see basically yourself, kind of your player character, almost back in the game, and you're fighting them, which is why Red doesn't talk. Red is supposed to be your player character, which is why you just ... Which, you know, seeing that and having like an ultimate goal after the ultimate goal of Champion is crazy cool. I think a lot of the designs in Gen 2 really hit a lot better than Gen 1's. You've got like Typhlosion, Feraligatr, Noctowl, Togetic, Togepi. Girafarig is another one that really sticks to my mind.
Things like Tyranitar and the legendaries in this game are just so intense. Like, I feel like Ho-Oh and Lugia just like feel grander, and maybe that's because they have their own specific locations and they really get focused on in this generation. But the designs really knock it out of the park here, for sure.
I completely agree. Fun little fact: every gym type in Gen 2 is an unused type in Gen 1. So whatever gyms were in Gen 1, you were not going to see the same typing in Johto. I keep saying Gen 1 and 2. Whatever gyms were in Kanto, you're not going to see the same typings in Johto, which I think is really cool, which also kind of solidifies that the sequel thing. They wanted to touch every type. Except Dark. We didn't get Dark because Dark was added. We got a Steel type, but we did get a Dark type gym leader. But it's fine. We did get one eventually in Gen 8, which we'll get to eventually. But we had a Dark type Elite Four member in Karen. Back on the level curve though, we're kind of going back and forth between. This is what we'll do for the rest of the video. Kind of is the flow between both negative and positive of the games. The level curve is, Storm already touched on it, but it's horrendous. Gen 2, the Johto region, has the lowest level Elite Four out of every one of them. The highest level Pokemon you fight in the Johto Elite Four is Lance's level 50 Dragonite. That is the highest level, is a level 50. That is unheard of. Gen 4, I believe, is level 60, 62, 64?
Yeah.
That's a full 12 to 14 levels higher than Gen 2. That's insane.
And, like, at face value, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. It's like, it's just a couple levels, but it really changes how you play through the game. Like, not to say that everyone limits themselves to certain levels at that point in the game, but, the levels of the gym leaders in the Elite Four are kind of like a blueprint for where you should be at for the point in the game. Exactly. And if you are around that area, a lot of your Pokemon are going to be underleveled, or not underleveled, but not evolved and not having good moves, especially because in Gens 1, 2, and 3, the move sets are not very good. Like, your Pokemon do not get good moves until very late into the game. Yeah. Because of that, it can sometimes feel like you're very underpowered going into these important moments in the story.
Exactly. And it's tough. Like, these gym battles are very difficult. Like, Whitney and Claire and Lance are all extremely hard gym battles, not because of their teams, not because of their Pokemon, slightly with Lance there, but because of the levels and what levels these Pokemon are evolving at. You're going into Whitney's fight with, it's a level 20 with unfully evolved Pokemon, while she has a freaking Miltank that has base 100 speed and like base 80 attack. Like, it's just, and it's super bulky too. So it's a combination of the level curve, where the Pokemon are evolving at, what their movesets are like, and really what, like, just kind of how the games were set up in that way that make the leveling and the experience of playing very unsatisfying, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. So
where are you
with
thinking?
all that considered, I feel like it should, at the very least, be B, but maybe even A tier. What are you thinking?
I'm feeling B. I don't know. I'm feeling like high B, low A.
Yeah, we can keep it there for now, and then as we go, we can rearrange things.
We'll rearrange things, yeah, for sure. So moving on to Gen 3. This is a lot of people's first generation. A lot of people's first generation. It was mine.
Especially people in our age range, which is Jason and I are both in our low 20s.
Yeah.
So pretty much anyone from the age, I'd say ballpark 18 to like 23, 24. This is their first generation.
Yep.
And it has a lot of love in the community. A lot of love.
Yeah. Gen 3 is usually Gen 3 and 4 are both debated widely as a whole community debate of which generations are the best. Gen 3 has done a lot for the games. Gen 3, the graphical update between Gen 2 and 3 is such a step up. And yes, that's because of the technology. The Game Boy Color and the Game Boy are a much lesser advanced console than the Game Boy Advance, which is why it's called the Game Boy Advance. It's the graphical fidelity, while being still that pixel art, is such a massive jump. We've got full color now. We've got full massive regions that we can explore with different tile sets and different cool designs and colorful colors that we've never seen before. I know I touched on colors already, but like we Gen 1 and 2, yes, Gen 2 was on the Game Boy Color, but it was still very like one color palette, or like it had variety in colors, but it wasn't as distinct as Gen 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's
like that jump in technology can't be understated. It's because, I mean, and there's definitely, obviously there's going to be jumps in technology when you go from something like the Game Boy to the DS and things like that, but it doesn't make as big of an impact as it does here. Like, this is really, really monumental. I don't think it makes another giant leap like this until we get to the Switch. Like, it really doesn't. Going from the Game Boy to the DS, it's definitely a big change, but it's not like that monumental. Same thing for the DS to the 3DS. But once you hit the Switch, it's like, whoa. Like, it really feels like you're in a new era almost. Mm-hmm. You know?
I
think
completely
you should get
agree.
a lot of props for that.
Yeah. Gen 3 definitely has that effect of this is new. Like, whoa, this is new. Mm-hmm. Gen 3 did not only add that feeling and was not only just a graphical leap, but it also, they added abilities. Gen 3 was the first time we saw abilities for Pokemon. But the big feature between Gen 1 and 2 for battling is they split the special stat into special defense and special attack. But that was about it. Which that was huge, and that is a massive change. But it's not nearly as big as I would say as abilities. Yeah. Abilities add so much to Pokemon. They make or break Pokemon. You could have a Pokemon who was not very good, give it a new ability, and it's great now. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example of that from Gen 1 and 2. I don't know if you can off the top of your head.
I would. The first thing that comes to mind is like huge power with Azumarill. That makes a world of difference. Or things that get Intimidate, make them like Arcanine with Intimidate is so much harder to deal with than Arcanine with Flash Fire. You know? Yeah. Or no ability with Gen 1 and 2. Like, it just changes the complete fundamental of the game.
Yeah, it allows for a lot more strategy. It allows for a lot more diversity as well. And granted, abilities get expanded upon every generation. I'd say they got expanded upon until about Gen 6 when things started to slow down for abilities. Like Gen 4 and 5 added a ton of abilities, but Gen 6 through the rest of them, they add kind of more niche abilities. But excuse me, I think that Gen 3 really was a massive step forward for the gameplay flow of Pokemon. I think without abilities being added, Pokemon would be a very different game right now.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, other than just abilities, Gen 3 has a lot to offer. I think the story is very good. I mean, we didn't really touch much on the story of Gen 1 and 2, but they're both very good too. I think Gen 3 is right on par with that. With the caveat of, I think a lot of the older generations, since they have a lot of exploring, they can also lead to a lot of confusion, because it's like, okay, where am I supposed to go? I have this item, what am I supposed to do with this? You have to give it to a specific person at a certain time to progress the story. There's a lot of that in Gens 1 through 3 that doesn't really need to be there. I mean, obviously now, going back, it's not a problem, because you could just Google everything, but when these games came out, that's not a thing. So it's...
You have to wait for the Nintendo Power to come out.
Yeah, but I think the stories overall for Gens 1 to 3 are all really good. All the evil teams are very memorable, and they have their own storylines and things to focus on. The Pokemon designs in Gen 3 are great. Again, there's not a lot of... I think with every generation, like 80% of designs are great, and then a little bit of them are lackluster or bad. Yeah. But really good. I think the music, again, hits... Like, there's just every generation has really good music for the most part. I think Gen 3 has a lot of very memorable tracks as well.
I think so too, yeah. I know a lot of people are kind of like the sound font is a little tinny for them and kind of hurts their ears, but at the same time, I personally, this might be the nostalgia, and probably is, I love the Gen 3 music so much.
I get that. I also like it a lot, but I can definitely understand that criticism, especially with Fire Red and Leaf Green. It doesn't really feel as, like, great.
Polished.
You know? Yeah, polished. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, but I can see that. There's certain trumpets and certain higher frequencies that hit a little funky on the ears, but for me, I just, oh man, I love them. I love them so much. And you know, to be fair, we weren't hearing necessarily we weren't hearing these tracks the same way we hear them now. We were hearing them through like shitty old Game Boy speakers, you know what I mean? Like they're really like crappy Game Boy speakers back in the day, while we have like high quality audio headsets and earphones and audiophile grade stuff nowadays, so we can really listen and pick out stuff. So to its own credit, I'm kind of trying to push it into a little favor here. Maybe we do it something a little, you know, try to get it back into the positive. I think the sound for a Game Boy was phenomenal.
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? Is that's what I feel like we need to be clear about. We're talking about these flaws with the older generations. We totally understand that it is constricted to the technology it was made on. So yeah, we're keeping that in mind, but trying to keep it as critical as we can. There's definitely flaws. But I mean, speaking of Fire Red Leaf Green, the fact that it's just there is really, really nice. Like at the time, since I think this is the first time we've had really a true remake, right?
Fire Red and Leaf Green were the first remakes.
So yeah, it was really refreshing to see Kanto again in color and looking great and all that stuff. So I think Fire Red Leaf Green was a great remake for that reason. And but if we're talking negatives, it's as much as it gets talked about way more than it should. There really was too much water.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little ridiculous, you know? Like, you shouldn't need 2 water types on your team, or 1 designated water type just to get you through the latter half of the game, you know? It's just...
The beginning up to about Gym 6, I would say, maybe Gym 7 being Fortree and Moss Deep, I would say is a lot more land-based. But like once you beat Norman and get Surf, you're kind of waterlocked, and it's not super fun.
Yeah.
Seeing the same Whalmer, Tentacool, and Wingulls over and over and over again gets really boring really quick. And it also, the diving is very confusing. Very, very, very confusing. Still to this day, despite playing Gen 3, God knows how many times, I get confused as to where to dive for Sutopolis sometimes, and also I get confused as to where to dive for the underground cavern to awaken the Kyogre or Groudon.
Yeah, and it's like diving is a cool mechanic as a whole. It's just, I really wish they did what they did in the later games, where it's just an item or like a Pokemon ride or whatever it is, so you don't have to constantly hinder your Pokemon with these moves. And obviously some HMs are better than others. Like Surf is a great move that you want on all
Surf
of
is
your
a staple water type move.
Yeah, but like things like Dive or Waterfall gets better in later gens, or like Rock Smash. Just HMs as a whole are amazing, but that's a whole nother topic. Like it's not really Gen 3's fault for that. So, you know, all that keeping in mind, I think Gen 3 is really good.
Yeah, I definitely... I think Gen 3 is one of the most solid packages we could get out of any of them. We got a brand new experience with Ruby and Sapphire. We got a remake of old games in Fire Red Leaf Green that were then compatible with Ruby and Sapphire. Granted, the compatibility between these games was really wonky. You had to do a lot to get trades going. And then we got a third game, as per tradition, with Emerald that really fixed a lot of Hoenn stuff. I didn't fix it. It's not as fixed as Platinum, but it added a lot, I think. It added Rayquaza to the story. It added animations to the characters, just like Crystal did. Although, again, didn't touch on it, but Crystal, I think, has a lot more personality than Emerald does, but that's just me. But Emerald just is a much better package. Like, if you're playing Gen 3, you gotta be playing Emerald. Like, Ruby and Sapphire are good, but, like, Emerald's, like, the game for Gen 3.
Yeah,
or
and I don't know if we touched on this yet, but have you talked about, isn't Gen 3 the one that introduced double battles?
Yes. Yeah.
That's huge. Like, that's such a game changer. Both in, like, competitive Pokemon world and also just in the game. Like, Tate and Liza wouldn't be challenging at all if it wasn't a double battle.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's just, that's such a huge thing to add to the longevity of all these games. So
yeah, double battles are such a staple that we often forget that Gen 3 introduced them, but continue.
Yeah. I know for me personally, I think double battles are way more fun in competitive Pokemon to do, because there's just it's almost a completely different game at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you still have all the core mechanics, but the way you think about a double battle is so different from how you think about a single battle. So
yeah.
I think that is a huge thing for Gen 3.
And also, double battles are the official VGC format for Pokemon. VGC is a double battle format, which is crazy because Gen 1 didn't have double battles. Gen 3 introduced double battles. Double battles are cool, man. And I definitely, you've awakened me to double battles. I was very much a singles player before we met. And you very much awakened me. I don't know if you remember when you were back in Gen 7, you'd stream battles, and I built that, like, doubles water team I was really proud of.
Yeah. So with all of that, especially I think Gen 3 can be summed up as just the best, like, overall consistent gen. Like, there's not a lot of huge flaws with it. You know, it's very solid, and because of that, I feel like it's gotta be A tier.
Yeah, 100%. A tier. There's definitely things exactly that can, put it.
Yeah, it can be improved upon for sure, but it's so good.
Yeah, A tier is definitely deserved, I'd say, 100%. I'm gonna let you start this one.
I'm gonna try and contain the bias for Gen 4, but I love Gen 4 so much. It's so good. It's amazing. I started with it, obviously, so I'm gonna have that bias, and again, I'm gonna try and hold it down, but it's amazing. So obviously you have Diamond, Pearl, Platinum. Platinum is very similar to Emerald, and it just takes everything from the original, not Johto. What is it called? Sinnoh, yeah. Oh, such a huge fan. Can't remember Sinnoh. It improves on it so much, but to get into detail, so it's those and then Heart Gold to Silver. But to get into detail about it, just the music is amazing in these games. Again, the music is good in all these games, but in this one, I think moving to the DS helps the music out a lot, because you got I mean, I think you could have headphones in a Game Boy.
Yeah, but it wasn't like 3.5mm jack. It was like a weird proprietary thing.
The music is a huge step up for everything. The graphics look great. The game looks great. The story is great. It's a very similar story. It's the classic Pokemon formula, but I think it's just it's very humorous if you pay attention to what they're saying. I never really realized it the first few playthroughs, but the more you read the dialogue, it's a pretty funny story.
Yeah.
And then when you get to Platinum and you have the distortion world and all that stuff, it gets dark. So it has a lot of that balance in the story. With Heart Gold, I think it takes everything that's good about Johto and just makes it better. You know, it doesn't get rid of Johto's flaws, but it just accentuates everything that's good about it so much more. Obviously, Pokemon following you is a huge thing that people love. That was the first time we've seen that, I'm pretty sure, unless it was in the original
Yellow.
Yeah, forgot about Yellow. But being able to see all of these Pokemon, all of the Pokemon Gens 1 through 4 following you in
and their shiny forms.
And their shiny forms is crazy. Obviously this is a point that people love and it gets oversaid, but Pokemon following you is really, really important in Heart Gold. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest factors to Gen 4 as a whole is the fact that it's not like you're just getting Sinnoh. You're getting Sinnoh, Kanto, and Johto in one generation. Like, that's huge. That's huge. And obviously a big part of that is because of Gen 2, but Gen 4 as a whole is also extremely strong, so you're getting all three. And it's really strong. And that's not to say that Heart Gold, Soul Silver is a perfect game. They still have the flaws that Gen 2 does. Still have the bad level curve, still have no place to grind. But it's just, it's so good, you know?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that Gen 4 gets hit on, especially Diamond and Pearl, is their pacing from like a battles and a travel and a movement speed standpoint. The battles are extremely slow. Those HP bars do not move.
Yeah, it's rough. It is rough. There's so many like videos on the internet you can find about how terribly slow the HP bars are. And especially walking around isn't that bad, but in specific areas it's really bad. Like when you have to try and get to Snow Point City, it's extremely slow.
The snow sucks. Surfing in Diamond and Pearl is really slow. Platinum kind of fixed it, but it's still slow. But surfing in Diamond and Pearl is like a snail's pace. Oh my god.
It's very slow. Yeah, so the pacing is not the greatest in Gen 4 for sure. But one thing that can't be understated at all is the addition of the physical special split.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, we needed that. Oh my god, we needed that. It's very similar to adding abilities in Gen 3, where it completely changes the game, but it keeps everything the same. And it completely changes how you use these Pokemon. Obviously, some Pokemon are still going to be good regardless because of their stats, their typings. But, like, man, a Hitmonchan was such a garbage Pokemon until we get to Gen 4. And now it's a monster. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah,
like,
another one that always gets touched on is Absol. Absol could not utilize its stab very well back in Gen 3 because it was special. Absol's primarily a physical attacker. Now it can. Now Night Slash, it's hitting things hard with Night Slash. It's coming at you with Bite and Pursuit. Actually, I don't know if Absol gets Bite. Anyway, Absol became a much better Pokemon. Azumarill is better. Not fully better until Gen 6, but it's better as a whole now. That's one that always gets touched on.
So yeah, it completely changes the game. Then speaking of that, we get, and even though Gen 2 did this a little bit as well, we get a lot of new evolutions for old Pokemon, which is huge.
Oh, I loved that.
It's so huge.
Oh,
like
I
there were so many Pokemon in the past 3 gens where it's like, why doesn't this evolve? Like it's
Murkrow.
It's like Murkrow, Sneasel,
Mischievous.
Mischievous, stuff like that. It's like
Magneton, Nosepass.
It's so huge. It was so necessary and such an easy thing to add that I'm surprised has not been done in the next 4 generations.
Yeah, we only get it in Gen 8.
Yeah, it's crazy how impactful that is. So that's huge. The designs overall are very good. Again, most of the time they're very good. Everything is hit or miss, but I feel like Gen 4, in my opinion, has the most solid overall. Because I think every gen has those like really lackluster ones. Like, you know, you have like Volbeat and Illumise from Gen 3. You have the Voltorb and Muck from Gen 1. You have the Sun. I don't know what Gen 4 is. I think you can make the case for Bidoof, but I personally know a lot of people love Bidoof. So it's like, maybe Kricketune would be the one.
Yeah, kind of Kricketune.
But even, I feel like Kricketune has so much personality with its cry that everybody loves. So it's like, even that, it's hard to...
It's hard to nail down I know exactly. One that gets touched on a lot when talking about Pokemon designs is Gen 4 kind of started the middle evolution syndrome. Where the starter Pokemon, their middle forms are like really funky looking and like don't really fit.
The awkward teen phase.
Yeah, exactly. Gen 4 really started with that whole thing. Like everyone like laughs at Prinplup because Prinplup just looks like a dork.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that happens a lot after Gen 4. But I mean, I feel like it can only be taken with a grain of salt because I mean, you only have the middle evolution for so long. Like, you're going to have your baby form more and your fully evolved form way more in the middle evolution. So I feel like it doesn't really matter that much. But it's definitely something to keep in mind for sure.
Yeah. With all that being said, though, I think we really touched on Gen 4 a good amount there. I think I know exactly where you want to put this, and I think I'd agree with you.
Yeah, I can't put it less than S tier. Like, it's so good overall, and the flaws are so minuscule, and even the flaws that it has, it gets fixed in Platinum in the later games. You know, it's crazy. So I feel like you can't. The lowest you could put it is A tier, but I think you have to put it S tier, especially for not just all the mechanics that it changed and things that it added, but the fact that you're getting 3 regions in one is crazy.
It is pretty gnarly.
You know.
Yeah, I think Gen 4 definitely deserves S tier. Speaking of S tier, Gen 5. I mean, we don't even talk about it. It goes in S tier.
Yeah, I mean, we're also pretty biased for this one as well. It's not like these were our first games or anything.
No.
Us personally, we both have a lot of experience playing these games.
Yeah.
And Gen 5, I still do not understand why it sold so little in compared to all of the Pokemon games, because they're such complete games. Like
they really are.
Crazy. Like, I feel like this is the best Pokemon story out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really good. A lot of the characters are really memorable. They actually use the gym leaders in the Elite Four a lot. Like, I feel like in most of the Pokemon games, they're just kind of there.
Yeah, these guys are involved in the story. Literally, in the original Black and White, they come out and they help you fight Getsis in the castle after the Elite Four.
Yeah, like that's such a little thing to add, but it makes a world of a difference. You know.
Yeah.
And, the Pokemon designs, now here's the thing about Gen 5. The designs are very polarizing. People either love these or hate these. And I definitely get it, because especially when I first played the game, I was like, what is this ice cream cone doing on my screen? I don't want it. But I don't know. I don't think the lower end of designs are any worse than the lower end designs in the previous generations.
I completely agree.
Noticed it in Gen 5 is when they really were like, wow, these aren't great.
And to kind of preface that, Gen 5 added, even more than Gen 1, added the most Pokemon out of every generation we've ever had. Gen 5 added 155, while Gen 1 had 151. It had, granted, that's 4 or 5 more. It's not that much more, but it's the most we've ever had in any generation. And Gen 5, I'm not sure, I think this might have been confirmed in some interviews, I'm not entirely sure, but Gen 5 is widely regarded as just a soft reboot of the games. A very soft reboot of the franchise, which is why in Black and White, you couldn't catch any old Pokemon. Black and White, the originals, before the sequels, had only the Univadex until you beat the games.
Mm-hmm. And I personally love that, but I understand why people don't like it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Pokemon has already established in all of these gens that it's completely up to the player and how you want to play. So if you're taking out a huge feature, which is using your old Pokemon, I know a lot of people play these games and love to use similar teams throughout the generations. This is the first one where you just can't do that. No. So I understand why people are upset about it, but I personally really enjoy the fact that you can only use the new Pokemon. Because I think something that, especially in Gen 6, 7, and 8, but in these previous gens as well, really starts to become a problem is that even though there's new Pokemon, it's almost a hassle to find them. You know, like you're gonna run into the old ones so much faster and so much more common than you are gonna find the new ones. That's not the point. You know,
in Gen 6, the first wild Pokemon you fight is a Pidgey, and it's guaranteed a Pidgey every time, which is annoying.
Yeah, it's just you know. You shouldn't have to work to get the new content. And it's not like it is like a job to find the Pokemon. You can find them. But there's a lot, especially in Gen 7 and 8, where it's like you can play the games 5 times in a row and never find 20% of the new Pokemon. You just won't find them. So I think the fact that you can only get the new Pokemon is pretty huge. And the music in these games, the music is so good. It's so good. Man.
I really got to touch on this. I'm a music guy. This is something that you guys probably know, and if you don't know, you'll learn very shortly or very quickly. Music is such a huge part of my life. I love music. I've been playing instruments since I was in 6th grade. Even before then, my dad used to play clarinet when he was in school, so he was introduced to music. I heard so much music from my parents when I was growing up. I used to dance when I was a little baby, and if they changed the song depending on the tempo, I'd dance slower or faster. Music has been such a part of my life that I can just appreciate Gen 5. I love it so much. This is the first game that truly added dynamics in music, which is, for those of you guys that aren't fully understanding of the term, that means like the volume of certain parts. So like some parts of music is louder than it is quieter, and things like that. Every other game has those to an extent, but Gen 5 really just like it's not live recorded music yet. It's still the in-game sounds and chiptune and sound font, but it sounds orchestral. And that's what's so cool. Like, just load up Black and White and listen to the intro song. The brr, 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 brr. Like, it's intense. It gets you pumped to play these games. They changed the low health beeping into a song, which is so cool. The gym leader's final Pokemon have their own music. I keep cutting you off, but I'm just so excited. Continue.
No, I was just going to say exactly what you just said. Those moments are so huge in replayability for these games, because you have, obviously every Pokemon playthrough is different for everybody, but when you get in those tight situations where you're about to lose your last Pokemon or you're low health and you're finally on the gym leader's last Pokemon, it's just so intense because of all the music, and I feel like that makes it so much more memorable, because you have these moments where you're like, for me personally, I was doing an Nuzlocke and I'm like, oh, I'm on my last Pokemon, it's an Umbreon, it's on like 2 health, and I knocked out their last Pokemon the last second and won, and you have like all these crazy moments that are just hyped up even more with the music, and it's such a small detail that they added that just helps tremendously.
It's so nice. It's amazing. It's truly a change. They also, this is kind of something that people didn't really notice, they really messed with the camera in these games. Like, they allowed the camera to be very moving and very, like, exploratory. Like, when you're going over the Castelia Bridge, it, like, zooms out and then zooms in. There's things moving. There's people walking. There's cars driving by. When in the sequels, when you're going on boat from the original starting town area to Castelia City, it's, like, super zoomed out. There's a cool cutscene. When the End's Castle happens, like, there's just so many different camera movements and changes, and it really allows you to see a lot of the region. I feel like Gen 5, they were really proud of. Like, it feels like they were really proud of this generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
it's crazy how much they did. And then that's not even, we haven't even gotten to how good the sprites look even today.
Oh my god.
The sprite, the movement with them, it helps so much, because these Pokemon that, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I feel like Pokemon can be, like, Pokemon designs can be summed up into either cool or cute, and then the animations just take that and magnify it by a million. It makes a cute Pokemon a million times cuter. It makes a cool Pokemon so much more intense looking, you know? And
yeah, it can really, like, a lot of them the animations can really add a sense of intimidation. You know, it's cool. It's awesome.
It's really, really cool. And I mean, one thing that is both a negative and a positive is introduction of difficulties in this gen. Like, the fact, if you could choose your difficulty at the start, that would be incredible. But the fact you have to beat the game first and then
trade a key with somebody if you have the wrong version.
Yeah, it's just that they handled that wrong. But the fact that they're trying is, I think it gets brownie points.
Yeah, I completely agree. It also introduced triple and rotation battles, which were then subsequently later taken out of the games, but I do think triple and rotation added a huge element of strategy. They were very underutilized in the games and outside of the main story, but triple and rotation battles, being able to use all three of your Pokemon was something we wanted for a long time as a community. It's like that's something like, oh man, we have double battles. What about using 3? Like, why can't we use 3? That'd be so cool. And when we finally got it, it was definitely a lot of fun, and it added a lot of strategy and really hammered in, like, you need to know what you're doing, especially rotation battles. Like, being able to swap out what Pokemon's in front, that was so crazy. It was like a single battle with 3 Pokemon without having to, like, actually waste your turn in switching. It was crazy.
Yeah. It's super unique. It's super memorable. And I feel like people can chop that up to, oh, it's just a gimmick, because, you know, every generation has its particular things that it adds in and then it gets taken out. But I think this one is really, really unique and definitely was underutilized for sure. Mm-hmm. And then that's all. We're all just talking about one game. We're not even talking about the sequel yet. So, like, then we finally get an actual sequel, not just an improved version or an alternate timeline or whatever it is. Like a true sequel where we know these characters already, and we see them grow up. We see them develop, we see new things. We have new characters as well. The rival in the sequel is more like your traditional red or your traditional silver, or not red, or blue. Whether it's like they go back to because I know people coming into Gen 5 are like, oh, the rivals are getting too friendly. You know, we need it to be more aggressive towards you, so you feel better about beating them. Yeah. And Hugh wasn't like jerk, mean. But like, you know, he had that fire that was kind of missing in some of these previous gens. And not just that, but just the whole Team Plasma arc was super interesting, and the end game was intense with Colress and Getsus and all that stuff. So I think having the sequel, it didn't improve upon the previous games as much as like a Platinum did or as an Emerald did, but it more just added more uniqueness.
It was, you know? Yeah, it was really cool having a brand new story as opposed to playing the same story with slight tweaks.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then plus it gave you the whole, you can use your old Pokemon now.
Yeah, so, exactly. You know, Riolu is one of the first Pokemon you can get, or you know, Munchlax. Sorry, that's a Volt White and Black White or Blaze Black thing.
Yeah, but you know, in that sense, it got rid of the flaws that the old games had.
Yeah, exactly.
So, with all that in mind, we already said it, but this has got to be S tier.
It's S tier. You know? There's no doubt about it. And I want to put it above Gen 4, but I don't know. What do you think?
The biggest reason why I can't justify putting it above Gen 4 as a whole is, one, the whole 3 regions thing. That's huge. Can't say it enough. But also the fact that these are, by far, the least selling games. So even though we love it, and a lot of, like, quote-unquote hardcore Pokemon fans love Gen 5, the general public didn't. So I feel like that has to be taken into account somewhat, you know?
Unfortunately. Gen 5 will always be number 1 in my heart, though. So I'd say we arguably go from one of the highest feeling and highest ranking games to one of the lowest. We'll talk about the generation as a whole, but going from Gen 5 to X and Y graphically was crazy cool to see.
Yeah, the fact that it brought the whole series into 3D is huge. Yeah. Like not everyone, but a lot of Pokemon fans their entire lives at this point have always thought about what it would be like if you had a Pokemon game on a home console or just in 3D in general. And we finally got that. And obviously you have Pokemon games like XD and Coliseum, but it's not the same thing at all.
Stadium, Battle Revolution, but no, they're spin-offs.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that you have a full series game completely in 3D is definitely huge.
Yeah, and I'd say that's one of the few positives of X and Y.
And that's
kind of harsh, but
Gen 6 isn't bad by any means. I think we can both agree, and a lot of you guys can agree, that there's no bad Pokemon game, right? Like it's just it's still good. It's just I think it's to compare it to something that is not Pokemon. I think what happened from Gen 5 to Gen 6 is like the opposite of what happened with Star Wars The Force Awakens to Star Wars The Last Jedi. Whereas like when The Force Awakens came out, if you're not a Star Wars fan, the general complaint was this is too similar to everything we've already seen. We need something new. And then Last Jedi came out and everyone hated it because it was way too new and it was not what fans are used to. With Gens 5 and 6, it's the opposite. People did not like Gen 5 because it was too different from the natural formula. Whereas Gen 6 it feels kind of bland in comparison to everything else. It's just Pokemon, but with a French accent. You know, like
it's Pokemon.
Exactly, you know. So I feel like that's the biggest problem with it as a whole.
Yeah, it brought the least amount of Pokemon into any game. I believe it's tagged at 74 or 76, which, oh my god, that's so low.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I mean, granted, 6 brand new creatures with new stats, abilities, designs, movesets, and everything. Now, that's a lot in hindsight, but when you're looking at what we just came off of, being 155, 56, bro,
and
70 is nothing.
And that's factored in with Gen 6. I think they really overcompensated with the complaint that you can't use your old Pokemon, because there are so many Pokemon to get in Gen 6, which is cool, because you have so many options. But the problem is it really de-highlights the new Pokemon, because it just makes them so much harder to find and harder to get. in
Yeah.
comparison to all the new Pokemon, or all the old Pokemon that you can find.
Yeah, like why would I use a Bunnelby when I can use Bidoof right there? Like why would I use this? Why would I use, you know, a good example is Litleo can be found on the route right above Santaloon City, which is the bug gym, I believe. Litleo can be found there, but did you use a Litleo? No, because you didn't know it was there. Because Psyduck's in that route. Because Farfetch'd is right there. You know, like we never got to catch a Farfetch before, and there it is. You know, early ass in the game. You know, stuff like that. It's the X and Y. As much as I think this is a very harsh way to say it, X and Y is very much baby's first Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's easy, as much as, you know, the experience share is the thing that a lot of people use as the excuse as to why X and Y are easy, but turn off the experience share and it's still easy. It's harder, but it's still easy.
I was 100% a believer in that. I thought people were over-exaggerating to the whole X and Y is way too easy thing. And then I did a very tough playthrough of X and Y where my Pokemon were limited to the level curve of the game. And it's still a breeze. Like, it is alarmingly easy. And it's not like Pokemon games are known for their difficulty. This isn't Dark Souls or anything. Yeah. But it's like, you need to have a little bit of pushback every now and then. You know?
Exactly. So. And one of the big knocks is, again, comparing it to Gen 5, one of the big knocks is the gym leaders are just gym leaders. Mm-hmm. The only one we see outside of their gym is Karina.
Yep.
That's it. And it's only because she's got Lucario, which you are given. Also, you're given a Lucario which can Mega Evolve at Gym 3. What is that?
Yeah, it is kind of wild. And then directly after that, you get Lapras for free. And
exactly.
It's a little...
You know...
And I get they're doing those to show off the new features of like, oh, you can surf on Lapras. Oh, there's Mega Evolution. But it's like... You know, it's a little. The game was already easy enough, and then you
exactly like give us a Mega that isn't Lucario. Like Lucario is such a strong Mega to give us at the beginning. Like I'm trying to think of one. Give us like I can't think of one off the top of my head that would be a good one to give as like an entry level to Mega Evolution. What would you think?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember the Megas like that, but I know I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But even after all of the negative things we said, there are still a lot of good things about Gen 6. I think the atmosphere in the game is really good. Like, we made the joke about it being just Pokemon but French, but, like, it really does feel like this whole new, completely different, like, almost culture within the game.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's cool. It feels like you're in, like, France, Pokemon's version of France. Mm-hmm. And they really nailed that. Yeah,
and Mega Evolution as a whole, as much as it has its ups and downs, is a really cool concept. You know, the fact that you get new evolutions to all these different Pokemon and then way stronger versions of Pokemon is pretty cool. Now, it is kind of whack when you compare it to something like Gen 4 where you just get them for free and you'll have these evolutions forever, as opposed to needing an item for it and then it just gets cut out after Gen 6. Is a little, or after Gen 7, sorry. Is a little whack, but I mean, the idea of it was really cool.
Yeah, it was a very cool concept. It was super fun when it was there. Mega Kangaskhan was tearing through teams in VGC. Mega Mawile made Mawile viable for the first time ever. Blaziken became even stronger. Lucario became even stronger. Charizard and Mewtwo got their own Megas, which, why did they need them? But they got them. Charizard finally became a dragon type with Mega Charizard X, which is super cool. Everyone's been wanting that for years. Mega Charizard X is badass. Like, I gotta admit it, dude. Mega Charizard X, especially in Pokemon Origins, I don't know if you ever watched that little short anime thing that they did, but in Pokemon Origins, Mega Charizard X looks cool as hell.
Yeah.
So, as much as I am more of a we don't need Megas back kind of person, which we don't, I love them for what they are. It was a very cool feature.
Exactly, and not just Megas, but I think Pokemon to me and like the strength training was a nice little mini game. Because I mean, you've had mini games in the past, like you've had the Pokeathlon, which is really unique, and things, and like the beauty what sort of contests?
The contests.
I kept saying concept. I was like, what? But no. Okay, anyway, but I thought it was a really nice touch. Like, you know, you could play with your Pokemon, give them the fruit or whatever it is, the sweets. You know,
Puffins or not Puffins? It was Pokepuffs. Pokepuffs. That's what it was.
And then the strength training was really nice to do like EV stuff or get like the evolutionary stones.
Gen 6 really helped with a lot of quality of life changes when it came to competitive breeding.
Yeah, it was very, very nice. And just competitive as a whole, like adding the ability capsules item at the end of the game was so huge for competitive people who did it legit. Obviously, people hacking their Pokemon is what it is. But, like, people who do it legit, that's huge. That's so huge.
Nice.
And then not just that, but also, even though there is a complete lack of post-game in Gen 6, it's pretty rough. Like, the game just ends, and then you have Mewtwo, and that's it.
Yeah.
But the one thing that helped the longevity of the games a lot, even now, is the shiny hunting was really good. And shiny hunting is huge within the Pokemon community.
I'd say Gen 5 added the shiny charm, but Gen 6 really expanded on it. They cut the base odds of shinies in half.
Yeah.
Like, you get shiny charm odds at the beginning, and then you get shiny charm on top of that and makes it even better. And then you have things like Friend Safari, which is guaranteed 1, 5, 12 no matter what, shiny charm or not. And then you have stuff like chain fishing, which is like 1 in 96.
And then you add in hordes, which we haven't even talked about at all, which is a huge, like, it's not like a big game changing mechanic, but it's really cool to see, like, there's a bunch of like little Psyducks coming at you. Like, you know, and then
it was cool.
Because of hordes, like a lot of people, this is the first time they ever got a shiny because of the boosted shiny odds and hordes, because your odds are so much better, you know, like that's definitely huge. And then and we still haven't even talked about it yet. Fairy typing is huge. Like that's
fairy.
So
holy crap.
That is so important. We haven't talked about it at all, really, because we haven't been touching too much on the competitive side of Pokemon as a whole. But man, our fairy types needed. Dragon types were so overpowered in all of the previous gens. Like, every now and then, ice types would counter it because of things like Dragonite, Salamence, whatever it is. But like, man, fairy types helped so much. And now you can say fairy types overpowered, which is, you can make a case for that. But the addition is just huge. It's so impactful. So
yeah, fairy types were much needed change, and I'm glad that they were added. We have been talking about X and Y this whole time, and Gen 3 remakes were not even talked about yet, so we should talk about those.
Yeah, Oras, it was good. It wasn't like that's the biggest thing for me personally, is Oras was good, but I've never had someone be like, you gotta play Oras. You know, it's solid. It's just not knock your socks off, which I feel like is a very good way to sum up Gen 6 as a whole. But it did add some cool things, like the Dex Nav. It's such a cool thing, and like I feel like people chalk it up to like a gimmick, but like Dex Nav, you can make the case that should be in games forever. Like, that's such a cool.
Yeah, it kind of came back in Gen 8 with like the sneaking in the grass.
Yeah, well, but like, just man, knowing like what Pokemon are going to be there, how many you've gotten, getting like the egg moves and things like that. It's nice.
Yeah.
And then, you know, getting more Megas is huge, especially with Oras. I feel like they made the Megas for a lot more niche Pokemon and just things that you wouldn't expect, like Audino or like Camerupt, which, I mean, people didn't like because they're like, who cares about Audino? But, I mean, it's cool that lesser powered, like things like that are in the limelight. They're getting their 2 cents, you know?
R.I.P. Flygon.
R.I.P. Not getting that Mega.
No, there's actually they hit severe artist block, so they just trashed the idea.
Yeah,
they could not figure out a design they liked.
I still do not get that, but you know.
Yeah. Hey.
Either way, I mean, Oras had the Delta episode, which a lot of people didn't like, but I personally don't understand that. I think
it added a lot of cool lore.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like it added a lot of cool lore. Zinnia's theme is a banger. Like, that actually, it goes so hard. But one of the biggest things that people complain about with Pokemon as a series, not even just each generation, but just as a whole, that there's no post-game. There's a very severe lack of post-game. Then they really tried with the Delta episode to add a whole new thing and give you a bunch of stuff to do. Yeah. And it didn't really hit as hard as people thought it was going to be. So as much as it wasn't great, I feel like we got to give them credit for trying.
Yeah. They also added the gliding mechanic on the Mega Lotties, which was really cool because that allowed you to then get access to a lot of the old generation legendaries, which is super fun. I think that's really cool that we were able to see, you know, like Zekrom and Mesprit and Entei and stuff like that in the region. That was such a fun mechanic. But I will say, I don't think the Gen 3 remakes made Gen 3 better. I don't know if you'd
Yeah.
agree with that. I think it just made them slightly, like, not necessarily slightly different, but I don't think it, like, was a massive improvement.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that's why Oras doesn't really get talked about much in the community, is because it did everything you'd expect it to do, but it didn't really change much.
Yeah.
You know?
You might as well just play Gen 3.
Yeah. So, and plus, I mean, I don't know if we talked about this at all yet, but with X and Y and Oras, as much as it was nice to have the series in 3D and see all these animations, the art style was, like, kind of polarizing. You know, some people liked it, that it made that jump, but then a lot of people did not like the whole, like, chibi style they went for. I personally enjoyed it. I think it's kind of charming to go back to. But, you know, it wasn't, like, full-on upgrade like we'll get to in Gen 8.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So.
I completely agree. With all that being said, I think as a whole, I think Oras really holds this up a lot.
Yeah.
Kind of funnily, this was not on purpose, but Oras is kind of the structure of Gen 6. It's kind of why it's on the bottom and holding these two up.
Yeah.
I think it should go and be below Gen 2.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I think that's mostly because of Oras.
yeah. I mean, it's not even like Oras like reinvented the wheel or anything. It was just so solid that it helps out a lot. You know?
And X and Y were great games. Don't get us wrong. They added a lot. Fairy types and megas are a huge addition. Mm-hmm. But just there's a lot more negatives than positives. Okay, so that puts us at Gen 7. You want to go ahead and touch on this a little bit?
7! I really like it, but here's the thing. It does have a lot of flaws. I will 100% admit that. So, I think, by far, Gen 7 has the best atmosphere of any game. When you're going in to play Gen 7, yeah, I regularly forget I'm playing Pokemon. I feel like this is just a whole new RPG that I'm going into. Like, it's crazy, and I really, really appreciate that they tried so hard to change everything. Like, they really switched it up a lot with Gen 7. Like, they completely... Like, obviously, the foundation of the game is still there. Everything is still there. It's just... And especially after Gen 6, a lot of people were like, man, they really haven't done anything new in a long time. So Gen 7 answered that criticism, and they completely
Alola
changed
is its
it.
own experience.
Yeah, it's so it almost feels like a fever dream, like going back to it. It's like, what are these kahunas? Like, what's going on here? But it's really solid for what it is, you know. And I get the complaint to that it changes it too much, but I feel like it really makes it a unique experience.
Yeah.
And it added a lot of really cool features. You know, regional forums is huge. Like, that's such a cool thing. Like, it's with a lot of these new features, it's like, how did we not have this before? And then they add it, and it's like, yes, like, this makes so much sense. You know, so regional forums are fantastic. It does kind of suck that it's only Kanto Pokemon, but I'll take it. It still makes things a lot more fun, in my opinion. SOS battles were really cool. That made a lot of sense to me as well. It does. I get it. The complaint that it makes it annoying sometimes when, like, you're just trying to catch something and it keeps calling something in. I get it. But I think it's a really cool thing, not just as like a shiny hunting method, but just as like a lore of the Pokemon. You know.
Yeah.
Like how some Pokemon just like will not call for help because they're just like too prideful or something like that. I think that's
it's really cool.
Z moves are really unique. I think with Gen 8, Z moves are way less impactful than they were when it first came out, but I thought Z moves are a really, really good idea. You know, it made getting a badge feel intense because you're like, oh man, I just got like a whole new slew of moves with this badge now. And then it made, similar to a lot of like the gimmicks within the gens, it made so many Pokemon viable. It made the move Splash usable. Like, if you saw a Gyarados with Splash, you'd be like, oh no. Like, it's about to go down. So I feel like Z moves were really, really cool. However,
Porygon Z got a massive boost because of Z conversion.
Yeah.
I think Z conversion Z conversion 2 you would like turn into your a normal type or a ghost type or something, and then you would get it was an Omni boost, right? You get a boost in all your stats.
It was something like that. It was something crazy. But there was a lot of really, really cool stuff with Z moves. It kind of sucks that it got overshadowed later, but you know, for what it was, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the story, though, I personally really enjoyed it, but I know it can be very, very, very hit or miss for a lot of people. Some people are like
very cutscene heavy.
Yeah, very cutscene heavy, which I get that. The early game in this gen is so slow. Like, it is And obviously the early game in every game is slow, but with this, it's really, this is where they really started to go for the younger audience and like make sure you know where you're going and doing.
It's very handholdy.
Yeah, it really strips down a lot of the exploration aspect of Pokemon a lot. And I mean, Gen 6 did it too with like, you know, Lumio City. You could barely do anything in there until you get to the 5th gym or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But Gen 7, it's extremely noticeable. You know, like everywhere you go, if you're not progressing the story, then you can't do anything. So it's,
yeah, exactly.
You know, it's a little whack for that. But I do think the story is really really compelling, really memorable to say the least. But there's a lot of stuff that Gen 7 did right. The getting rid of HMs is huge. That is so nice. And I get why people don't like it because it's such a huge staple of the series, but I think it definitely was needed. My goodness, was it nice not to have to put cut and strength, even though strength wasn't that bad, but rock slide and defog and dive and all these moves on your Pokemon anymore. Like, it really frees up your team. I personally, when I was a kid, I would always have like a designated HM slave on my teams because I just didn't want to hinder my Pokemon like that. So the fact that this is just completely not a thing anymore, and people who started with Gen 7 will never know that struggle, is so nice going forward. So that was huge. The addition of Ultra Beast was a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Man, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I really like the Ultra Beast designs a lot. I think it was a really cool concept. And I think partially because a lot of like the beginning speculation was like, oh my god, Pheromosa is oh my god, what was the mom's name?
Lusamine.
Lusamine. Was her name Lusamine?
Yeah.
Wow, really? That wasn't what I thought it was.
Oh, what'd you think it was?
I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, but Lusamine was blanking for some reason. But yeah, like Pheromosa is Lusamine, and Nihilego is Lily, and Guzma is Xurkitree, and like it looked like they were gonna like transform into these Ultra Beasts, and like they were modeled after them, and it was so crazy and cool and alien. And we're gonna kind of come back to this, but the sequel games, quote unquote. Ultra Sun and Moon, they added for the first time new Pokemon in the middle of a generation, which is so cool. We got Poipole and Naganadel, then Stakataka, I call it Staccatica, and Blacephalon. Getting those in the middle of the generation was so cool, and I think Ultra Beasts were a really, really fun, wacky, zany addition to the games, and I think a lot of them, like Celesteela, was a core Pokemon in a lot of people's teams, especially in VGC, because I think it was just pure bulk. And it was really cool. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, like it just added a lot to the games, and especially to the post game of like, you know, and especially the biggest thing about Ultra Beast that I personally enjoyed isn't just the design or like the base stat distribution to make them so wacky, as you were saying, but the fact that they have, I think was it only in Ultra Sun and Moon, or was it in the original ones? I can't remember. Where they have their own worlds that you go to.
That's only Ultra Sun and Moon.
Yeah, that was something that was really cool that I don't think gets talked about enough. Like seeing, I will never forget when I tried to catch Xurkitree for the first time and seeing them just running around like that. I was not prepared for that. They're just tiptoeing by the window. But it was really cool that they did that. So I think again, the biggest thing about Gen 7 is that they really tried new things. They threw everything at the wall. Some of it sticks, some of it didn't. But for what we got, it was pretty good. However, the two biggest problems with Gen 7. Ultra Sun and Moon, even though I just said that was a nice feature, really did not bring a lot to the table.
It's like the only thing they added.
And I think especially because it was, from what I remember, it was more marketed as a sequel. The fact that we just got a slightly alternate timeline is like really lackluster. Like they could have added so much more stuff, and I get you have deadlines to hit and things like that, but man, just wait to put out these games and add more things, because the Ultra Wormhole stuff was cool. Getting to fly around on your legendaries was a really cool idea, but if that's like the only thing,
it's what would be the 7th gym.
Yeah, it's like the game. It's the same game until you get like 3/4 the way in. You know, and that's just, there are so many people that I know that literally have not finished the game because they stopped because they got bored. You know, so that's a huge thing. And we haven't even talked about the last part of Gen 7. Let's go Pikachu and let's go Eevee. Let's not go, please. These games were not great. They were not great. And this
the
was
reason we're talking about them, I want to clarify. A lot of people consider them to be spin-offs. A lot of people do. Because it strips away a lot of the way the core RPG works. But, and I see it this way too, they're remakes. They are remakes of Gen 1 again. And because of that, Nintendo and Game Freak themselves have stated that these are main series core RPG games.
Exactly.
That is why we're talking about them. And they fit in Gen 7 because they are not a new generation of Pokemon. They're not new. The only thing they added was Meltan. And Meltan is from Go/Gen 7. It's like considered like, though the region Meltan's from is Earth because it's from Pokemon Go. But Meltan is a Gen 7 Pokemon when classified. It's like in between Gen 7 and 8, but is leaned towards Gen 7. So that's why Gen 7, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is part of Gen 7. It's because it was before a new generation of Pokemon. It is a remake similar to how Fire and Leaf Green are not part of Gen 4. They're part of Gen 3.
Yeah, and I definitely understand. I would prefer to put them as a spin-off. I would love to do that so it doesn't drag Gen 7 down. But Let's Go does exactly that. It really drags these games down. Because it does feel like a spin-off. It does not feel like a Pokemon game at all. Like, I think it was cool what they tried to do with the whole catching mechanic. I was like, oh, that would have been fine if you could still damage it and it's still a battle. You just, when you go to throw the Pokeballs like that would have been fine. But the fact that it's just you can only catch them and that's it is really rough.
Yeah,
like that is rough. And then obviously we've alluded to this a lot of the Kanto burnout that has happened over the years, where every generation it feels like they're like, hey, don't forget about Kanto, and it's like, we know. And this was like the tipping point for so many people where you're just like, I can't handle any more of it. Like, it's just,
this is too much Kanto. This sucks. Stop it.
Yeah, and it would be different if it was like, it's like you have all of your Pokemon in the game. It's just you're playing through Kanto again. But it's like you only get, once you've gotten so used to Pokemon, how it is, going back to only 150 really sucks. Especially because of what we talked about with the lackluster designs, things like that. Let's Go only points out the flaws in Pokemon, really.
Yeah.
And it was basically just like a tech demo, like to test out how Gen 8 was going to work. So if you take it as that,
it was a way
fine.
It was a tech demo, and it was a way to try to get the Go crowd to buy consoles and buy the Switch, basically.
Exactly. So if you take it for that, it's totally fine. But the fact that we have to consider it as a main game, it really, 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 really does not live up to the Pokemon standard in the slightest.
Not at all.
So
They took out held items. They took out abilities. Luckily, the physical special split's still there, but they added these like specific Pokemon candies where each stat could be boosted like tremendously. So, like a Pokemon without candies and a Pokemon with candies is something so drastic. You can like take on the Elite Four with a Pidgey because you can put like candies into it that make it so much stronger. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It makes no sense. Let's Go. The shiny hunting method was terrible. It was boring. It wasn't fully AFK because you had to sit there and pay attention. But all you could do was sit there. And you just watched Pokemon spawn until, oh, there's one that's got little gold sparkles. Oh, there it is. Let me go catch it. And then it could run away.
Yeah. It was just not a good look. Not a good look for the Game Freak squad, or whoever made this game. So because of all that, I feel like it has to be D tier. It's just not.
Let's Go screws Gen 7 over.
And it's not even just Let's Go. Like, even Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon was really lackluster. Like, if 2 out of the 3 games in your generation are not good, it's, unless Sun and Moon was just incredible, there's no way it could have been any higher.
No, unfortunately. As much as we love Gen 7 for what Gen 7 is, like the Alola region, Let's Go and the lack of changes in Ultra Sun and Moon really dragged their generation down a lot. But that does leave us at Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, probably the most controversial games out of any of them for no real reason.
Yeah, it's a lot of like, I feel like a lot of the older Pokemon generation now is just kind of gotten hardened by Gen 6 and 7 to where people are just clamoring for a really good Pokemon game. We haven't gotten
they want what they felt back in their kid days with Gen 4 and Gen 5.
Exactly, it's so hard to do as a company making things, whether it's movies, TV shows, video games, whatever it is. That's a really hard thing to do. But if you're going into Gen 8 with even somewhat of an open mind, it's pretty good. You know,
yeah, they're good games.
They're solid. Like, I feel like, again, a lot of people are overly critical just because they're so wanting of something.
My national
fantastic.
Dex, where'd it go? Huh?
Yeah, the National Dex thing was a lot. It really is not that big of a deal. I understand why it's frustrating. I do. But at some point, you have to take the games for what it is. You know?
Yeah.
So,
like, what? I could talk about the National Dex thing forever, but one of the big things is you in every single previous game, you do not bring your Pokemon over until post game. So why does it matter that they're not there?
Yeah, it's really an overblown problem that people have.
It really is. Yeah. And then the whole thing about trees. Oh god.
Yeah, there was like for those of you that don't know, there's a few textures in the game that don't look amazing. They don't look up to, you know, a game that came out in, it came out 2019 or 2018?
2019, late 2019.
Yeah, it doesn't live up to those standards, but it's very not noticeable. You can play these 10 times and not notice it. But
these games are beautiful.
Yeah, this is what we alluded to earlier. This is that other huge technical jump.
Yeah.
Like you really, really feel the difference between Gen 7 and Gen 8. Like they look great, and there's a lot of things that Gen 8 did really well. Like the graphics look great. The Pokemon that we did get look phenomenal. The wild area as a concept is super cool. Super cool.
Love
the fact that you can actually... You've had a few things in previous Pokemon games, like the Underground and Gen 4, where you can interact with other players. Now you really can. You can see people driving around on their little bikes, and you can do the raids with the people. And it really adds a lot of replayability to these games. And it's not like... There's not a ton of things to do, but the things that there are to do, they really nail, you know?
Yeah. And I think that... I really think Sword and Shield are a very solid game. They do a lot of things right, but also at the same time, one of the things that I think really the game struggles with is exploration. The wild area lets you explore. The wild area lets you free roam, but the rest of the game is very linear, and that's what really, really sucks. Like if you go into the Galar Mine 1 and Galar Mine 2, it's straight pathways. Like you don't go anywhere but straight. You might like take a curve, but like you can't deviate very far, if at all.
And there's little secret areas, but that's not the majority of it at all. There's maybe one or two of those.
Exactly, and that's what really, really sucks about Sword and Shield, and what I think they really missed. And I think, personally, when Crown Tundra, because we probably should preface this, this is being recorded in July of 2020, so we have not seen the Crown Tundra, but we have seen the Isle of Armor, and we've seen it for about a month. So I think the Crown Tundra is going to be that exploration, which... To be fair, maybe we shouldn't have waited for a DLC, especially one that's coming out and when a new Pokemon game usually comes out, to get that exploration. But I do think that the lack of exploration in the base game is very tough. It makes things a lot less replayable from that aspect. While the games do have a lot of replayability from the multiplayer aspect of things, playing through the story over and over again can get very, very boring very quickly. Yeah. Because it's the same things over and over. Granted, there's a lot of variety of Pokemon you can use, especially because of the wild area. But I don't know. It's the exploration's very much a struggle. And to touch on it, the wild area, or not the wild area, but the Isle of Armor is what the wild area, I think, was trying to be. I think they put the wild area in as a taste, and they are giving us the full course with the Isle of Armor and eventually Crown Tundra, because wow, is that Isle of Armor so fun to explore and drive around.
Yeah, it really is. And I think the DLC as a whole is a huge help, because I think the mindset of oh, they're just trying to get more of our money. We shouldn't pay. We shouldn't have to pay for this. This should be in the base game. I think it's a very flawed way to think about it.
Yeah.
And like, would you rather have a game like Ultra Sun and Moon again, where they rush it out because they needed these deadlines and it's really not that good and things like that, or would you rather have just DLC every now and then, where we get a lot of extra stuff, half the price, and it adds so much more things and improves on so much more things? While if they want to make a Gen 4 remake or another game, they can do that without being pressured to force that out, you know?
Yeah.
So I think DLC as a whole is just a really big thing, and we'll see what Crown Tundra does. We don't know. I mean, maybe it's horrible, but, you know, well, we'll see.
I mean, they're going to let us explore the raid dens, and it's going to be like a 4-player co-op puzzle, which is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
Which I think that's going to be fun. But, yeah, no, I think the DLC model is a much better way of doing things. I would rather pay $90 at separate intervals than opposed to a full $120, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, to get the full experience of the generation. Me personally, I'm going to be buying the games no matter what they do. That's just me. They have to really screw up for me to not buy a Pokemon game. But, I would rather pay $90 I would rather pay $90 for base game plus DLC experience, where I can continue my experience from the base game through, as opposed to paying $120 for 2 separate experiences of the same thing.
Yeah. And like Gen 8, again, because of a lot of people are very critical at this point, I feel like it doesn't get enough credit as it deserves. Because, like, it does so many things well. You know, like, the story is solid. Like, it's pretty good. Hop as a rival is way better than people give him credit
Yeah,
for.
oh my god, dude. Yeah.
Like, people really think that Hop is just How again, but they're completely different colors, characters. They're very similar colors, but, you know. It's really pretty good. And I think Leon as a champion was super interesting. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I get the whole, like, criticism of, like, oh, he's just hyped up to be so good, and then you beat him, and then his character means nothing. But it's like, I enjoy the fact that, or I really appreciate the fact that they actually built up some sort of lore on their characters. You know,
yeah.
Like you really want to beat Leon, and like the whole idea of Dynamaxing, which we haven't even talked about yet, and like the Coliseum is huge. Like when you go into these gym battles, it feels like an event. I think that's something
so fun
in Pokemon games that does not get enough credit in Gen 6, 7, and 8. They all have very different feels, but they all have very distinct feels. Like you're playing Gen 6, you're playing Gen 7, and you're in Gen 8 because of how different the overall feel of the battle is when you go into these things. But it's still the same Pokemon formula that you love, you know?
Exactly.
So.
And that's what makes them great. That's what makes them so fun. And I like they really, really, really nailed the feel of gym battles. And I think a lot of the promotional material was like focusing on the gyms and focusing on what gym battles are. So I think that's why they did that. It's very much a sporting event. It's very much a sport arena, and it really feels like it. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Speaking of Dynamax, because that is kind of touching on gym battles, Dynamaxing I think is a better thing than Mega Evolution. It takes the best of Megas and it takes the best of Emus and make them into something that's more strategic. Mm-hmm. And I think there's so much strategy that you can do with Dynamaxing. I just had a battle the other day where I Dynamaxed and won the battle because I Dynamaxed. If I didn't Dynamax, I wouldn't have won. And I know that can be really pivotal for a lot of people. Being like, oh, you just press a button and you insta-win kind of thing. But it's not. There's a lot of strategy in how to deal with it. You know, you have ways to lower your opponent's stats. You have ways to raise your stats. You can change the weather to be in your favor. You can put up new effects with certain Gigantamax forms. Snorlax can become a massive tank because of its Gigantamax form, because it can replenish its citrus berries and constantly be getting health. And there's a lot of really cool strategy and mechanic when it comes to Dynamaxing that I don't think Megas and Zemus really had. Zemus were like a nuke. You just throw it out there and just knock something out. While Megas were also just kind of that in a way, but a little less so. It was just, you know, strong Pokemon, go attack now, you know, kind of thing. While Dynamaxing can definitely be that way, I feel like there's a lot more strategy in Dynamaxing. Knowing when to Dynamax, knowing if your Dynamax is going to be helpful in your current position, which Pokemon to Dynamax. Some are going to be better than others. Some are going to be ones that you might not expect you want to. Like Durant Dynamaxing is huge. Durant is meta right now because Hustle Dynamax. Dynamax moves don't miss, and you get a Hustle boost from them, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of... I feel like Dynamaxing added a lot of viability for a lot of Pokemon, and really is a very solid feature, and is, I think, personally better than the past two.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. However, I still think Mega Evolutions are better, just because like I feel like it's it's just Dynamaxing, except you get a whole new Pokemon design, which is huge.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the fact that they got scrapped is definitely unfortunate. I know you don't agree with that, but I mean,
nope.
I just think Dynamaxing is good, but I wouldn't say it's like infinitely or even that much better than Mega Evolution or maybe Z moves, but not
That's
Mega
fair.
Evolution.
I definitely see your point.
So yeah, Gen 8, very, very solid overall. One thing though that we haven't really talked about is I feel like, and I don't think you agree with me on this one, but I know for me and a lot of other people, the music in this gen is not very memorable. There's a few very good tracks. I think you can say that for both Gen 6 and Gen 8, but really as a whole, it feels very samey. It feels very just like you're in a town now, so there's town music, but it's not like, oh man, we're in Jubilife City now, we're in Four Tree City now. It's like you're just going places with a few good tracks. Like you have Bede's theme, you have Rose's theme, you have the
Hop
Champion
2.
theme, Hop 2, like stuff like that. You have your highlights, but for the most part, it's really lackluster in the music department.
As much as I love the music of just the Pokemon as a whole, I definitely agree that Gen 8 is very much like Gen 7, where there's a lot of tracks that are really good, but there are also ones that are not good. Like the Water Gym Town, I'm blanking on the name. I had it a second ago. It doesn't really matter. The one with Nessa's gym.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the music there. Oh my god. It's like one of the few songs I despise. I hate that. Like it doesn't fit the theme of the town. It just sounds weird. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of music that just doesn't. It does not hit different. Like it just really it just exists, and like I feel like that's for us personally, maybe not for everybody, not for every player, but the music in Pokemon is such a huge factor of the experience. The fact that it's not helping much at all kind of drags Gen 8 down a good amount.
Yeah, the music in Pokemon is great. Well, on the other hand, speaking of this though, the gym battle music is great.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
The whole gym experience is amazing. We've already talked about that, but the music changing with the last Pokemon and the crowd getting involved is great.
It's so cool. But yeah, no, it's definitely Sword and Shield as a whole are very B tier.
Yeah.
I would very much put them low B. Definitely not C though, but they would be low B.
Yeah, and like obviously it's like with an asterisk because we don't know what the next DLC is going to be, and we don't know what the next game is going to be. So they could both be horrible, and brings it down to C or D tier, kind of like Gen 7. But I mean, could be great and bring it up to A or S tier. We don't know. So
we don't know.
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
But there you have it.
There's everything. This is what we think about every generation as a whole. We have Gen 4 at the top of S tier, which is interchangeable with Gen 5, also in S tier. Gen 3 is an A. B is the most populated, being with Gen 2, 6, and 8. Gen 1, as much as we love the start off point, is a C tier, and Gen 3, COD Let's Go. Oh, you screwed it over, man. D tier. But anything else you'd like to add, Storm?
That's gonna do it. Again, keep in mind, this is our opinion, so if you would like to argue with us, definitely do it in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think about this. This is a huge thing in the Pokemon community that gets talked about a lot, so we'd love to hear from you. If you want to see more from us, we're both on Twitch quite a bit. I'm personally doing my own playthrough of all the Pokemon generations in a row, so if you like Pokemon, check us both out. We both do Pokemon stuff over on twitch.tv.
Both will be linked in the descriptions and on the main page of the YouTube channel. Let us know, like you said, let us know what your tier list is in the comments down below. In the description will be timestamps, as well as on the video themselves. The timestamps should be there in case you're curious about what specific generation, or maybe you want to show your friend a specific point of talking that you'd like to express with them. But without further ado, I've been DarkZarkRom998.
I've been Storm Targaryen.
And we'll catch you guys next time on another episode of Tiermania.